Hello there, this is L24 World News, streaming live from the capital Algiers, and coming up next in our news program. Algerian Foreign Minister Mr. Mamra repeated at the UN General Assembly Algeria's affirmation of its support to Palestinian cause and the Sahrawi people's self-determination. Japan has bid farewell to assassinated former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe with the raised state funeral that divided the nation. Voting is set to close today, Tuesday, in annexation polls organized by Russian-installed authorities in 4 parts of Ukraine, as the Ukrainian government and its Western allies reject the polls as a sham. After 10 months flying in space, NASA's Double Asteroid Redirection Test DART, the world's first planetary defense technology demonstration, successfully impacted its asteroid targets on Monday. Hello again and welcome. First in our topical news, Algerian Foreign Minister Mr. Mamra restated from the podium of the UN General Assembly Algeria's affirmation of its support for the right of the Sahrawi people to end the Moroccan occupation and to exercise their absolute right to self-determination and independence. Mamra added that Algeria looks forward to the Arab Summit to be held next November as milestone in the March of Joint Arab Action, noting that Algeria is continuing its efforts to strengthen unity among the Palestinians in the light of the initiative launched by the Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune.
Algeria reaffirms its support for the right of the brotherly people of Western Sahara to end the occupation in their territory. Algeria is preparing to host an important summit of the Arab countries and is looking forward to this event being a milestone in the march of joint Arab action towards a more effective contribution of the Arab group in addressing the current challenges. I reiterate that addressing the Palestinian issue remains the main key to restoring security and stability in the Middle East region. In this regard, Algeria affirms its support for the request submitted by the State of Palestine of full membership in the United Nations.
Algerian Foreign Minister also Mamra handed the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres an invitation by the Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune to participate as a guest of honor at the Arab League Summit in Algeria. Guterres, for his part, expressed his deep gratitude to the Algerian President, stressing his acceptance of the invitation and his attendance at the work of this occasion. To a different matter now, hundreds of Zionist settlers stormed the Al-Aqsa compound once again in the occupied old city of Al-Quds as the Jewish New Year began over the weekend amid Palestinian protests. Palestinians' official Wafa news agency cited eyewitnesses as saying that the settlers broke into the site on Tuesday throughout the Maghrib Gate on the western side of the compound, which has been under the Zionist regime's control since the beginning of the occupation of East Al-Quds and West Bank in 1967. The Speaker of the Iraqi Parliament, Mohammed al-Halbousi, submitted his resignation from his position on Monday. The Iraqi Parliament announced that it will hold a session on Wednesday to vote on Parliament Speaker Mohammed al-Halbousi's resignations. Halbousi was elected last January by Triple Alliance of Shiite Sadrists, the Sunni Taqdum Bloc, and the Kurdistan Democratic Party. At least 10 people, mostly military, were killed in an attack in northern Burkina Faso. The army said in a statement that a population supply convoy accompanied by a unit of 40th Regiment was an attack as it traveled to Djibo. The statement added that the attack caused human and material damage. People in Tokyo offered a floral tribute and bid their final farewell to the assassinated former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe on Tuesday ahead of his controversial railway state funeral. Thousands of people queued outside Nippon Bokono in the capital city, waiting to bow and pray in front of Abe's portrait at an altar.
Today is the last day to say a proper goodbye to Shinzo Abe. I went to the headquarters of the Liberal Democratic Party to pay my respect to Abe in July, and also visited the site in Nara Prefecture, where the incident happened. It's the last day to bid my farewell, so I must come here today.
Still in Japan, hours before a state funeral held to honor assassinated former Japanese Prime Minister, hundreds of protesters marched on the streets of Tokyo. Protesters were seen holding up signs and chanting "No state funeral," that has become nearly decisive amid economic pain of ordinary citizens in Japan. In Russia-Ukraine, 5 referendums in the 4 eastern regions in Ukraine of Donetsk, Lugansk, and the southern regions of Kherson and Zaporizhia on joining Russia have arrived to their last day. The last day of voting will continue until 4 p.m. local time, after which counting will begin. Kiev and its allies had dismissed the polls as a sham, and other Western countries have threatened to impose further economic sanctions against Moscow. Dmitry Medvedev, the secretary of the Russia Security Council, chaired by Russian President Vladimir Putin, on Tuesday said that if a threat to Russia raises above a certain limit of danger, we will have to respond without asking anyone's consent and holding long consultation, and it's certainty, not a bluff, he said. Medvedev insisted that the right to use nuclear weapons is in line with Russia's nuclear deterrence doctrine, which states such weapons can be used if the country comes under a nuclear attack or in case of an aggression without conventional weapons that threatens the very existence of our state. The director of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Rafael Grossi, said that dialogue has resumed with Iran to clarify the issue of the 3 unauthorized nuclear sites. Tehran, meanwhile, said that it will enhance cooperation with the agency if it deals with it technically and not politically. Early on Monday, Grossi urged Iran to find a joint solution to the existing differences with the IAEA. With more than 44% of the ballot in Sunday elections, the right-wing alliance obtained a clear majority in both the Chamber of Deputies and the Senate, including 26% for Meloni's party, while the Italia making Giorgia Meloni the first female prime minister in Italy.
She has made it. With no much surprise, the first far-right prime minister in post-war Western Europe will be a woman. Giorgia Meloni has claimed victory in Italy's election and is on course to become the country's prime minister.
If we will be called to govern this country, we will do it for all Italians, for everybody, with the goal of uniting these people, of stressing what unites rather than what divides. Because the great goal that we have always given ourselves in life as political force was to ensure that Italians could once again be proud to be Italian, be proud to wave the tricolour flag.
From the very first estimates, published last evening, the results seemed clear, and it only got sharper as the night went on. Giorgia Meloni won the Italian elections with 26% of the vote. Her party, Fratelli d'Italia, is by far the leading force in the country. Therefore, for the Conservative coalition as a whole, it will enjoy a comfortable majority in parliament.
Io credo che questo risultato degli alleati
I
sia
believe that the result of the Allies League and Forza Italia is a life insurance for Giorgia Meloni. I believe that Giorgia Meloni will be much more malleable and well disposed towards the formation of the government, and therefore in the allocation of offices, ministries, and because of this great victory of Brothers of Italy, which allows Giorgia Meloni to be inflexible on the level of the government's agenda.
irremovibile sul piano programmatico.
This morning, in Italy's kiosks, all the headlines were about Giorgia Meloni, and people woke up with different opinions on the party's dramatic success.
Vediamo, deve dimostrare di saper.
Let's see, she has to prove that she can live up the role, and she has to prove that she can represent all Italians.
Se riuscirà, sarà consacrata.
Finally, we have some change, because let's say, it has been a few years since we had a change. Finally, we voted someone new.
The moment she has been waiting for all her political life has finally arrived, and her victory will not be without challenges at a time when Europe faces very hard issues.
And to have more updates on this matter, I'm joined live by Mr. Mark Lowe, an expert of international relations from Italy. Hello there, Mr. Mark Lowe.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the invitation to join you.
Thank you so much for being with us. Mr. Mark Lowe, lowering electricity and gas bills and changing the Italian constitution are both on the agenda of Brothers of Italy party as they began to think about forming a new government. What others challenges Giorgia Meloni is going to face as a new prime minister, according to your perception?
Okay, let me reply to your three questions in order. Finding a way to reduce energy consumption is without doubt one of the principal issues that Meloni's future government will be focused on. Two, changes to the constitution. I think more than anything else, this is a fear in the mind of who opposes the centre-right coalition. There have been a few suggestions, and in particular the concept of making changes as to how the President of the Republic is elected. Currently, Italy's archaic, Byzantine, if you like, constitution is based on a concept of assuring that no particular power bloc can become too powerful. So the proposal is, rather than have a President of the Republic elected by Parliament, it should, he or she, the figure of the president, should be elected by the public, by the citizens. Your third point, yes, Giorgia Meloni is a leader without any experience in government. She has inherited a disastrous situation. She has inherited an Italy that is facing one of the most important and one of the most dangerous crises of its history as a republic. Now, her major concerns will be assuring the solidity and the stability of her government. So she will have to work very carefully with her partners. She will have to be very, very wise in choosing advisors. She will have to be very wise in choosing ministers. So she faces enormous problems, and she's going to have to resolve these problems without actually having any experience in government. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how all of this progresses.
Quite understood. Mr. Mark Lowe, how do you think this new government will manage to take a role in Ukraine-Russia crisis? In other words, what is Meloni's position from this operation?
Well, Meloni has been very, very clear in stating that Italy's current position, that she'll uphold Italy's current position. She has been very, very clear on stating the importance of being part of the NATO alliance and adhering to NATO policies. She's been very clear on continuing sanctions against the Russian Federation. The same cannot be said for her other partners in the right-wing coalition. Matteo Salvini's Lega and Silvio Berlusconi's Forza Italia have different views. So it will be very, very difficult for Meloni to maintain a very, very firm stance. That, bearing in mind that the Italian population, the Italian electorate, is rather fed up with the whole Ukrainian issue. The The Italian population, like many, many other populations, is actually asking itself if the sacrifices and the difficulties created by sanctions on the Russian Federation are actually worth it. Are they working? Are they a long-term solution? What is the immediate term repercussion for the average citizen? Increased energy bills, increased food bills, all of this will lead to greater instability. So it will be very, very difficult for Meloni to maintain what she promises to maintain.
Mr. Mark Lowe from Italy, an international expert, thank you so much for all this explanation. In the United Kingdom, the pound has come again under new pressure after attempts by Treddeness Street and the Treasury failed to repair the damage caused by the mini-budget latest Friday, with sterling falling to a record low against the US dollar. Some economists predict the Bank of England may call an emergency meeting as soon as this week to raise rates to help stem fall in the pound and calm high inflation.
This is the problem, right? You know, you take a Labour government go down the spending route. Does that actually generate growth? Does that take us a recession? The Conservative route is always going to take you to tax cuts and use that so that the public has got more money to spend. I think the problem is what data is there to actually say whether one of those is going to be successful. I don't think there is, so it is a gamble.
What I do know is it's clearly just aimed at supporting Tory donors. I mean, it's robbing from the poorest in society and just giving the money to the richest. It's complete nonsense. And looking at the way the pound has been going today, it's going to end up in a complete catastrophe.
After almost 7 years of a border closure, Colombia and Venezuela opened their borders in a move to revive trade and cooperation between the two neighboring nations. Islam Seed tackled the story in this report.
Colombia and Venezuela marked the official reopening of the borders as a new chapter after years of unstable relations and constrained economic ties. The reopening, which is expected to enable billions of dollars in trade, will allow trucks loaded with goods and medications to move through crossings between the Colombian city of Cocora and the Venezuelan state of Táchira.
We're really happy because it's zero time, and as I said to my colleague, it's a joy we've been waiting for a long time, and we're thankful to God for this moment.
Colombian President Gustavo Petro considered the reopening of the borders for a trade as a historic day for South America. Petro had already promised to implement the act during his presidential campaign.
I think today is a historic day for the region, for the country, for South America, for America in general. Globalization is first and foremost a relationship between neighbors. Anyone who examines international trade flows, cultural flows, population flows, always finds that most of them are between neighbors.
In his part, Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro thanked his Colombian counterpart for the step taken, and he considered it as a way to restore brotherhood and cooperation between the two nations.
I thank President Gustavo Petro in the name of 30 million Venezuelans for this huge step we took to restore brotherhood, cooperation, union and complementary relationships between people who are the most important.
The countries had also agreed to restart flights between the two capitals. Cargo transport had previously been allowed through one northern crossing, but now the borders were also open to pedestrians, with many Venezuelans crossing to buy basic goods, as their country experiences a long-running economic crisis.
Parents and classmates of 43 disappeared students from Ayotzinapa held protests in the center of Mexico City in which they asked for justice for the case that celebrates its 8th anniversary today. Hussein Burkan.
8 years after what happened the night of September 26, 2014, the parents of 43 disappeared students reaffirmed their demands for the Mexican authorities to reveal the truth. According to the official investigation in force so far, the 43 young people were arrested by the local police in collusion with the Guerreros Unidos gang and then shot and buried in a landfill for reasons that remains unclear. Only the remains of 3 of them could be identified.
It is disturbing to say that to this day, we know nothing about our children. It hurts us to the bottom of our hearts that we don't know where our children are. That's why we're here, leaving our families and our homes, leaving everything, our work to come here, to demonstrate that we want the truth. Where are our children? We can't allow more injustice, more impunity.
Demonstrations also took place in the Hemicidio Ajuarez, in the center of the city. Several buses carrying parents and fellow students from the rural school in Ayotzinapa and others arrived at the scene. During a press conference, David Fernandez, a member of the Truth Commission, said that the commission have found credible evidence that military camp number 1 was the scene of crimes against humanity.
We found credible evidence that Army Camp Number 1 was the site of crimes against humanity and that it was the site of gross human rights violations.
The official report published in mid-August by the Ayotzinapa Truth Commission, set up by President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, estimated that Mexican soldiers had a share of responsibility in this crime, one of the worst cases of human rights violations in Mexico, where there are some 100,000 missing.
Former Brazilian president and candidate for presidency of Brazil, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, is holding a campaign meeting attended by artists, actors and intellectuals in Sao Paulo. Lula will face current President Jair Bolsonaro in the first round on the 2nd of October. The latest poll showed that Lula could win the election in the first round, as he went from 45% last month to 47%, widening the gap with President Jair Bolsonaro from 12 to 14 points percent.
Estamos a passo da vitória em 2 de outubro.
We are one step away from victory on October 2nd. There is still a bit of work to do. In the few days remaining, we must work to win the vote of all those who love democracy.
Daqueles que amam a democracia.
NASA's DART spacecraft successfully slammed into a distant asteroid at hypersonic speed on Monday in world's first test of planetary defense system, designed to prevent a potential doomsday meteorite collision with Earth. Humanity's first attempt to alter motion of an asteroid of any celestial body played out in NASA webcast from Mission Operations Center outside Washington, D.C.
Definitely, as we were getting close to the asteroid, there was a lot of, Ed said, joy. I say both terror and joy at the same time, because we saw that we were going to impact. This asteroid was coming into the field of view for the first time. We really had no idea what to expect. We didn't really know the shape of the asteroid, but we knew we were going to hit. So I think all of us were kind of holding our breaths. I'm kind of surprised none of us passed out, actually.
For the first time, humanity has demonstrated the ability to autonomously target and alter the orbit of a celestial object. The impact of DART into the asteroid Dimorphos was confirmed at 7:14 p.m. Eastern Time, when the DART Mission Operations Center here at APL lost signal with the spacecraft.
Ending up with the sport event, the Super Eagles head coach, the Portuguese Roger or Chelsea Biserio, has expressed confidence that the Super Eagles will emerge victorious against the Algerian national team, known as the Warriors, when both teams clash on today's evening at Meyloud Hetfi Stadium in Iran, saying that we have trained well for this game and we will do our best to come out as winners. Let's hear it.
It's a good match. Until now we was training well. You try to introduce some dynamics, some methodology, some exercise for look for the best for our organization, for our team. I think until now we did, the players did the maximum in the pitch, outside the pitch also. Tomorrow we play against one good team, strong team. We go to fight for beat them. Of course, it's not easy. We know all the players, but we have quality and the squad for fight with Algeria.
To this end, ladies and gentlemen, let's have a reminder for our main top stories. Algerian Foreign Minister Mr. Tallamamra repeated at the UN General Assembly Algeria's affirmation of its support to Palestinian cause and the Sahrawi people's self-determination. Japan has bid farewell to assassinated former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe with the raised state funeral that divided the nation. Voting is set to close today, Tuesday, in annexation polls organized by Russian-installed authorities in 4 parts of Ukraine, as the Ukrainian government and its Western allies reject the polls as a sham. After 10 months flying in space, NASA's Double Asteroid Redirection Test DART, the world's first planetary defense technology demonstration, successfully impacted its asteroid targets on Monday. That's all we have for now. For more updates, you can follow our special media platform as well as the website of L24 News. Bye for now.